Hi, everyone. I am Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road2College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. Let me just do some housekeeping, make sure everybody can get in. Thanks for joining on a Friday at least noon lunchtime for East Coasters and earlier for everybody in another time zone. Let me just tell you some things the way we run the meetings, and then we'll dive into the topic. So this is actually a meeting. It's not a webinar. Yep, let me put on captions. Somebody's asking for that. And so if you want to be on video, that's great. It's nice to see people's faces. You can also unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. That's fine as well. This is recorded, and we'd send out the link to the recording tomorrow. Please put your questions in chat. Let me get that chat going. So before I really dig in, love to know who's out here today. Where are you watching from? What year your student is in high school? Have you started thinking, planning? Yeah, I mean, I think most of the people here today are going to be parents with juniors or younger. Like, what are your thoughts about the college process? Even if you haven't dived in yet, if you're watching it from a distance, let me know any comments that you might have. And today I am talking about merit scholarships, how you find them, but it's really actually in the context of how you also find a college that's affordable, because for many parents, and again, assume most of the people who are on here today, you're in what we call like the middle. There's so many terms for it, the donuts, no man's land. You probably, have a decent income, but you might not have everything saved for college. Very, very, very few people have these days with the cost of college. And you're probably in a situation where you may not get need-based aid. So you're truly, that middle group who the colleges are expecting that you really pay the sticker price, or you have to find a college that is going to offer your student a merit scholarship that can lower the cost of college. Because as we'll talk, the merit scholarship is not based on financial need. So you have to find that match where your student is the right profile for that college, and the college is also offering money to students, and that money is what's going to lower your cost. So let's just see who is here. Parents of juniors and sophomores, all over. Someone from LA, Detroit. And I see here somebody has twins. We get a lot of families with twins. I feel for you. I have 3 kids, but they are not twins. So that's just, a lot to do with one process, and then obviously a lot of costs to also manage. Okay, so great. Let me share my screen and we will get going. Hold on. Okay, let me share, and then okay, can somebody just give me a thumbs up, or just tell me in the chat that you can see? Wait, sorry, I also lost the chat. Oh, here it is. Okay, just got to get that, come back. Great, thank you. Okay, so what I mentioned, we're talking about merit scholarships. We're talking about how you build a college list with merit scholarships. And it's really, the goal is to find the school that can offer your student money. And ultimately, it is to reduce your cost. I really actually, before I even start more with the slide, I want to applaud all the parents who are here. I know a lot of you have juniors and sophomores. It's really hard to get this concept into parents' minds that, but the sooner you start, it doesn't mean that you're a crazy parent. It doesn't mean that you're, over anxious because you're thinking about this process. It just means that you're trying to understand the system, because it is a system with a lot of ins and outs. And it also just means that you're trying to be prepared. And the earlier you start, actually, the less overwhelming the process will be, and hopefully a little bit more calming. Let me just get my participants. Okay. Oops, sorry. I'm a little. Okay. So if by chance you come in unmuted, just keep yourself muted. Okay, let's get going. So I'm not even going to go through the agenda. I've mentioned it a few times. So again, kind of from this viewpoint of how we pay for college, there's really 3 buckets that people can find money. It's from your own family. Maybe you have some savings. A lot of people do, but usually it's not enough to cover the full 4 years of college. Sometimes parents and families can adjust their budget and they're cash flowing from income. So that's a possibility. So there's money that's coming from the family. There's free money, which is really what we're focusing on today. And then there's borrowed money. The free money, as I mentioned, is the merit scholarships and potentially need-based aid if your family falls into that category. Their free money would also be considered private scholarships and government grants, which are the Pell Grants. Private scholarships, I don't really focus on a lot. It's not that they are bad, but I kind of view them as the icing on the cake. They will help, but they take a lot of work. And I would do that work after you've understood the merit scholarship process and system. So the other big thing about private scholarships are that they are each year you have to find a new set of private scholarships, because they usually last for 1 year. So if your student, which would be great, won some private scholarships, that's fabulous. But then to make sure that they can afford the 4 years of college, they're going to have to continue to look for new scholarships every year. So that's just my quick comment about private scholarships. They're not bad. It's just a different tactic. I personally think it's harder. I also think that if a family is trying to reduce the cost of college, they're looking for money, absolutely you need to kind of go the merit scholarship route first. And then if there's time and energy left over, the student should be working on private scholarships. And then the last is borrowed money. It's the federal student loans, it's private student loans. I don't actually talk about that today. We spend a lot of time, May through August, talking to families about student loans. We actually might start talking a little bit earlier about it, because I think for families like you, what you should understand is how much money a student can borrow through the federal government. And then after that, if you still need money because maybe your family doesn't have enough and you couldn't find enough in merit scholarships, you're most likely going to have to go with private loans. But the thing that is important to understand about the federal loans, which people find shocking, or because they don't understand the numbers, is they won't realize until honestly the spring of their student senior year that students can only they are maxed about how much that the federal government will lend them. Honestly, the first year it's only $5,500, second year it's $6,500, and junior and senior year it's only $7,500. Not that that's bad. If you, again, students need money, that's the first route that they should borrow. But what parents are kind of shocked at, which isn't shocking, they just don't understand the system, is that there isn't going to be a lender outside of the federal government that's going to lend money to your student without a cosigner. So just putting that piece of information out there, so that if you get to this process or the end of or towards that stage of the process, and your family still needs to borrow and you've tapped out the government loans, just be prepared that as a parent, you're going to have to co-sign, because that's the only way that a private lender is going to lend money. So, but there's a lot more details on that. But that's the most important thing for you to know at this stage. So why do I focus on the college list so much. Just a tiny bit of background on myself. I came to this space having spent many years in personal finance. I worked for companies like Fidelity and Vanguard, and I helped parents, or actually I helped investors or understand, or savers understand how to use their money at different life stages. And what I realized about paying for college is that it's really a decision and a point, a financial stage where, depending on how you make the decision, it has the potential to impact 2 generations, right? It will impact your student because they ultimately, have the debt, and it can impact the parents because, as I mentioned, you might be co-signing, you might end up dipping into money that you thought you were going to save for retirement. You might take out the loans in your name. So you have this one decision, and it has long-lasting impacts on your student and on parents. So I just found it so important to really focus on and help people understand the process. So now, if you scroll back a little bit further, right, the most important stage of this whole admissions process is your student's college list. It is, we kind of use this phrase, the college list drives everything. Right, so the colleges that your student ultimately puts on their list are the colleges that they're going to apply to. They're only going to be able to be accepted to this subset of colleges that they apply to, and then whatever the costs are of those colleges are going to be some subset of the final costs that your family's going to pay. So if a college isn't on the list, right? Another phrase we use is you can't get money from a college your student didn't apply to. So if you didn't do the right research ahead of time, and the college isn't on the list that your student applies to, you may not get the money that you're looking for. And so that's the work that we're doing now. We're kind of trying to teach people how to research, what information to look at, what you can estimate ahead of time, so that that college list is really solid. And then when your student gets acceptances back, they're getting acceptances to schools that, academically they're interested in going to, but also financially, you have at least estimated that you have the potential of affording it. Or you might have also decided you're okay that your student's going to borrow some money and you're going to borrow some money. But those are decisions that you can know ahead of time before your student even applies. So that's why we kind of look at this as being very strategic, and it all hinges on the college list. So what is merit aid? It's really a simple concept. It is a form of a discount that colleges are offering to students. It's also a nice thing. It is a type of a scholarship. So you can call it all these things. It's a scholarship, it's a discount, but it's basically a way that a college is using their money to shape the incoming class. And by saying shape, they're using the money to attract potentially a student of a higher caliber that they might want to come to their school. They're also using it to potentially attract a family that they know might have the means to pay for most of the college tuition over 4 years, but they're willing to give them a little discount because they want to make sure that they come to their school. So it's money that the college is using strategically to attract a certain type of student, whether it's academically or financially, that type of student. What's good about merit scholarships, as opposed to the private scholarships that I mentioned earlier, is that they are renewable. So when a college, and that's why it's also very important to understand it in this time frame of your student applying to be a freshman. Most merit scholarship dollars are given to freshmen because of everything I just explained. It's basically part of, and a college will never say this, but it's part of their marketing strategy, right? It just like any other business might use discounts or sales at different times of the year. A college is using their merit scholarship money to do that same type of work. So, and they want to attract that student who's going to be there for 4 years. So when they offer the merit scholarships, it's a scholarship amount that is going to be available for every year that the student is at school, which is very different than I mentioned about private scholarships, which are just usually 1 year and they're done. The other thing about merit scholarships, and we talk about this a lot more when students start getting their offers, is that there's usually some sort of requirement connected to it. Usually it's related to a minimum GPA. That may or may not be a big deal. It's just kind of like a fine detail that's important to look at some point. It's really most important to know before your student's accepting the merit scholarship. Some merit scholarships have a very generous, minimum GPA. They just want to make sure that the student is a 3.0. There are some merit scholarships that have higher minimum GPAs, whether that's to really make sure that the student is being rigorous, or whether it's sometimes, to kind of weed out some students who aren't gonna, make it through for 4 years. That's really a strategy from the college side, but the point is, it's going to be important at some point to know what the details are so that your student maintains the merit scholarship. The most important thing, and I've seen this happen with some families, is obviously you want to make sure if you're making a decision that your student is going to a college and you can afford it because of the student receiving a merit scholarship, you want to make sure that they get that money every 4 years. You don't want to be in the position, and again, I've seen it where usually it happens from from sophomore to junior year, where a student, for whatever reason, slips academically and they lose the merit scholarship. All of a sudden, your student is pretty deep into that college, right? They're going into their junior year, and your cost of sending them there has just increased because they lost the merit scholarship. So we don't want that to happen. That's why it's important to know those details. And then this is just a comment for when you start estimating the 4-year costs of college. And we do a session on that separately, because a lot of people think, let me just get through the first year of college and then I'll figure out how I'm going to pay for, the rest of the years. That's just not a smart way of approaching the costs. You really want to understand what the 4-year cost of sending your student is going to be, because you also might need to think about, how am I going to use this money that I've saved? If I have 529 money, am I going to use some of it first year, second year? When am I going to need to borrow? So, so my point here in the last one about be aware the amount doesn't increase. The amount of the merit scholarship doesn't increase as tuition increases. That's unfortunate. Over 4 years, the tuition is going to increase. I've seen such a range, partly because of COVID. I mean, during COVID, some colleges were not increasing tuition, thank goodness. Some of them maybe increased it like 2%. Now, we're seeing, because maybe to make up for the COVID years, I've seen increases from 5 to 7%, which is crazy. I would honestly plan on a 5% increase each year. Hopefully that's a little high. We'd like to know, or we'd like to expect that the college would, increase maybe around 3%, but, always better to estimate on the higher side. But again, so you're estimating that the tuition is going to increase, but the merit scholarship money doesn't usually increase year to year. Okay. So we've put merit scholarships into these 3 types of buckets. It's not formal. It's just our way of organizing so that we can explain it better to families. There's what I would call automatic merit scholarships. I'll talk about that. Competitive merit scholarships and talent-based merit scholarships. So the bulk of the merit scholarships are going to usually, they'll fall between automatic and competitive. But automatically basically means that your student doesn't need to do anything to be considered for the scholarship. They just usually have to apply. Sometimes they have to apply by a certain deadline, but they have to apply, and every application that's coming through to that college, the college is looking at it and considering, do we want to give this student, money, merit scholarships money. And so they're looking at the applications. They're determining this student doesn't have financial need, but do we want to reward them maybe because of their academics, or maybe, and we have a chart a little later, maybe we want to reward them because we know that they're a full pay family and we know that they can pay for all 4 years. So we're going to give them some sort of discount to have them think that this school is more attractive to them. But basically, it's automatic in that there's some criteria. Usually it's GPA. It could be some version of ACT, SAT that the college is looking at. And it's also usually going to be for a student that's more academically successful compared to the students that normally come to that school. So that's why you'll hear, and I'll talk and show you later, that students who have the academic profile that puts them in what we call the 75th percentile. So that's basically the top 25th percentile of students that have that profile that usually come to that school. That is the type of student that colleges are trying to attract with their merit scholarship money. So let me go to an example. The best colleges who, I guess I'm saying best in terms of transparency, are colleges that have grids that show this information on their website. I wish that every college did this. We can't mandate it. Some colleges do, some colleges do not. But for the colleges that do, it's pretty self-explanatory what they're looking for. They usually have a GPA requirement. Again, sometimes with the test optional, they may or may not say if they have an SAT or ACT requirements. But I will say that's a great question for your student to ask. So the first thing to see about a college is, do they give out merit scholarship money? And I'll show you in the data how you can tell that. If they're giving out merit scholarship money, is there some sort of grid or chart or clear criteria that they are explaining on their website? And if they don't mention SAT or ACT scores, have your student ask, like, are there certain ranges that the college is looking for that they're using to give out merit scholarships? It's a great question. It's a fair question. You'll find through this whole process that all the information you want to make the decision, we don't have access to. Some of it, the college is purposely not giving it. Some of it might have just got they're just not thinking enough about what families want. But my reason why I bring this up is I really encourage families to ask whatever questions you need to get the information for, so you can make a better decision. You may or may not get the information, but that shouldn't prevent you from asking. And my hope is maybe over time, when colleges get questions about the same information, maybe they'll start sharing it, but that's just a hope. Anyhow, so this example here, it happens to be Miami University in Ohio. It's just an example because they had a pretty clear chart. There's other schools you might have, University of Alabama has a great chart. University of Missouri has a great chart. So there are a lot of schools out there. I don't have a comprehensive list. It's kind of on our project list, maybe for 2024. But definitely it's important to go to the college website and see if they have this information. The reason why I show the Miami example is just to also show the kind of migration that has happened from before COVID to now. You can see in the bottom right, this is from 2020. They did used to have ACT, SAT scores and GPA. And during COVID, that shifted to just GPAs. And on the top chart here is from fall of this year, their current GPA ranges. The other thing I want to point out is that this does shift from year to year. So, from 2021 to 2023, you can see that the GPA ranges have shifted. This is, I try to get this concept across to parents, students as much as possible. Colleges are a business, just like, any other business. And, think about this is their pricing. And every year they're going to look and say, did our strategy work last year? Did we get the students we wanted at the academic profile that we wanted? And how much money did we have to give away to get those students? So they're always tweaking that information from year to year. So, that's why you'll see these changes. Somebody's asking, is it polite to ask what is the highest amount of merit your school offers to in-state versus out-of-state? That is perfectly a very valid question. I would absolutely ask it. Some schools, particularly the flagship state schools that are giving a lot of merit money, I'm pretty sure Alabama has this, where they actually have a chart for in-state students about how they give merit scholarship money versus out-of-state students. So again, some colleges are transparent about it. And if they're not, it is a perfectly fair question to ask. Hopefully you'll get a good answer. But yeah, I would encourage you to ask the question. So the last thing I want to point out in this example is weighted versus unweighted GPA. Miami University is making it clear that they're using weighted GPA. That's fine. That's kind of their prerogative. So that means that however your student's school is calculating the GPA, most likely Miami University is just taking it from the transcript and using that GPA to make their decisions. I will say that there's a fair number of colleges that use unweighted, but my point here in pointing this out is that you want to know what they're using. Again, Miami University is doing a nice job. They're highlighting it. They're putting it as a footnote. Other schools may not. They just may say GPA. They may not identify whether it's weighted or unweighted. So that's, again, another important question you're going to have to ask. You know, this is just an opinion that I am commenting. The world of test optional has been good and bad. Of course, it's good in that it has opened up the number of schools that students feel more comfortable applying to. Maybe they're great students, but they weren't good test takers, all of that. That's the positive side. The not so positive side is it's made decisions or understanding of what colleges are doing much murkier, right? So we don't know how much some schools might be looking at students who are submitting their SAT and ACT scores. They're not being that transparent about it. And so what that also has done is put more relevance or on the GPA, which is always important, but there isn't anything standard about GPAs, you know, across high schools. Every high schools calculate GPAs differently. A lot of schools a lot of colleges will recalculate the high school GPA for this purpose because they need to have a more apples to apples comparison. But not every college does that. And again, they don't always make their practices known. But in your list of questions about what to ask, another great question is, do you recalculate the GPA? If you do, how do you do it? I have found that if you ask that question, admissions officers are pretty open to answering and very clear also on how they're recalculating. They're not trying to keep that a secret, but for whatever reason, they don't always put that information on the website and make it easy to find. Okay, let's see some questions before I go to the next slide. Does asking for merit aid disadvantage your students' chances of getting in? I absolutely don't believe that. No, I don't think that asking about merit aid has anything to do whether or not they'll accept your student or not. So I wouldn't worry about that. What happens if your school doesn't weight the GPA? Do colleges recalculate it? Well, I actually just mentioned it. Usually, there's something called a school profile. Maybe you guys are familiar with it or not. I can send a link to what that is, but every school has a school profile that basically describes that school, and it's what the college relies on. So it gives the description of the classes, how many APs are available, what the distribution of grades might be. And so on that school profile, it should also say what the weighting system is. So admissions reps, because they're regional, are hopefully are familiar with your school and your school's profile. And so they will know whether your high school, how they're doing the grades, but that may or may not impact their admissions process. So unfortunately, there are some colleges that are just taking the GPA from the transcript, whether that GPA is weighted or not. So it's a great question to ask to understand how the college is looking at the GPA and if they're calculating it and how. So is there a difference between GPA for admissions and GPA for merit aid? These are great questions. Yes, there definitely can be. So because of what I just mentioned, this idea that colleges are using their merit money to kind of attract the best student that they can. So so the GPA for maybe general admissions might be lower than the GPA that they're going to use to give out money. So yes, I mean, most likely in a lot of cases, there is a difference. The GPA for merit is going to be higher. Again, hopefully there's a chart. If there isn't, I'm going to show you how we can look at the profile of a student that's in this top 75th percentile. There are ways to kind of estimate this. So could I elaborate on a comment I made earlier? It sounded like you were saying that colleges compete for students, parents who can pay for full tuition because they have funds saved. Our high 529 account balance is attractive to colleges. So what I was saying is, and quite honestly, a college isn't going to know what you have in terms of your 529 money, unless it's a college that is asking for what they call the CSS profile. And if you choose to not fill out these forms, and you don't have to fill out any of these financial aid forms, a college is never really going to know how much money you have, but they will estimate it by the fact that you don't fill out any financial aid forms is a sign to them that you feel comfortable that you can pay without getting any assistance. And quite honestly, they are, they know the demographics of high schools and the families around it. So they're making estimations, just like any marketing company might be, to know by your zip code, what your income level might be. But to the question about, it sounded like colleges are competing for students who can pay full tuition. In some respects, they are. There was a great article pretty recently. I wish I could get my finger on it quickly, but I'll try and look for it and send it after. It was actually, and it was also a newsletter that Jeff Salingo wrote and commented about. And the comment was, that kind of stuck in my head was, there are fewer and fewer families that we can consider full pay these days. It just makes sense. As the price of college has gone up, there's just fewer families who can, luckily say, I can afford, to send my kid to school and not have to borrow and not have to worry about the price. Colleges are looking for those, needle in the haystack families that have the students with the great academics and who can have no issues about paying. And for some level of schools, this is not going to relate to the really selective schools. This comment does not relate to, the Ivies and what I would say, the Ivy plus right below them, because there's so much competition to get into those schools that, that it's basically a supply and demand, and colleges have enough demand, so they don't have to pick and choose. But for other schools, and they're still good schools, yes, they would like more full pay families. And it kind of sounds counterintuitive. Why would they give a discount to a full pay family? Because they would rather, and I'm making up the numbers, give maybe like a 10% discount to a family who they know has the means to pay the rest of the 90%, and it's going to be there for 4 years. So those two things are important. Do they have the means to pay for the rest of the tuition after they're given any sort of merit discount? And will they be there for 4 years? So when a college is accepting your student, right, they're looking at a 4 years worth of revenue. They don't want that student to leave. They put in a lot of effort through the admissions process to find them and, have your student apply, and they reviewed the application and all that type of stuff. So by the time there's a joint decision where they've accepted your student and your student has decided to go, they want to make sure that you're there for 4 years. So they're, at certain schools, yes, they're looking for that family who they feel comfortable can pay the full amount, even if they end up giving them a discount. Okay, let me go on. I know there's a few more questions. So competitive merit aid. And I'm going to start to go a little fast because I want to get this all done within the hour. Competitive merit aid just means that there might be an application for your student to be considered for merit scholarships, and there most likely is a deadline, and that deadline could be different than the application deadline. And so I'm highlighting 2 schools here where we know that's the case. So University of Southern California actually they started early admissions just the other, about, I think 2 years ago, and or maybe this is their second year. And so in order to be considered for merit scholarships at University of Southern California, you have to apply by November 1st, which is their early action deadline. So if you want to be considered for merit scholarships and you don't know that, and you just apply for their regular deadline, you're not going to be considered. So, and they also have a separate application. So here's where, again, the being early, doing the research, you need to know this information. Otherwise, if you were trying to get any money from University of Southern California, it's just not going to happen because you missed the deadlines. So that's one example. The same thing with Boston University. They have a December 1st deadline. That is not their regular decision deadline is later. So you know, you want to be very aware of these deadlines. The other reason why I highlighted Boston University is they give a little bit of a clue, and this is even, you know, they are test optional. They give a little bit of a clue about the type of student that they're giving scholarship money to. In this case, you know, it's a student with a score of 1500 above or 33. So they're just giving you a hint. And I know these are very high numbers. I'm just using these as an example. There are a lot of schools that are giving students merit scholarship monies at all different academic levels. So your student doesn't have to be, you know, a student that got this 1500 or 33 or an above test score and has a 4.0 GPA. There are a lot of students at other academic levels that are still getting merit scholarships, but it comes down to the research. So you have to know your student, and you have to find the school where they're a match and that student's offering merit scholarship money. Okay, so a competitive, really important to know the deadlines, really important to understand that it's most likely going to be an additional application and an essay. I'm just bringing the essay part up because we're kind of working with students and doing presentations for families at all different stages of the process. This is the heavy essay season if your student was a senior, and we just did a session last night. And parents were sharing, you know, how many essays the students are doing, and somebody said, well, they're done with the Common App essay, but oh my gosh, now we've got 10 more essays to do because they have all these honors programs and scholarship essays to do. So again, parents sometimes don't realize that until you start to get into the you know, the meat of application season. So these programs are important, merit scholarships are important, but just recognize it's going to be a little bit more work with the amount of essays that might need to be done and some additional applications. Okay. Oh, I think I skipped or I lost the page which that talks about talent. Let me just go back here. I'll quickly, talent-based merit scholarships are kind of what they say. You know, some schools are giving money out based on your students' talent. It could be based on art, music, dance, theater. The thing to know about these types of scholarships, again, deadlines are really important. They might have a deadline for an audition, a deadline for when to send in a portfolio. If your student is talented and is going for these types of scholarships, that's great. Just be aware of all the requirements that are needed to you know, apply. My biggest message, as you can see, I keep bringing up the word deadline. This applies not just for merit scholarships, it's the whole process. Paying attention to deadlines is really important. I've rarely seen when a deadline passed that a student can reach out and say, can I still send in, you know, whatever and be considered? Usually not. The colleges are pretty strict about the deadlines, unless, of course, there are things like natural disasters. You know, they definitely have consideration for that. But, you know, this is an adulting process. And so they want the students to understand that they need to pay attention to directions, instructions, and deadlines. So we'd like to think our students are mature enough to know that, but I'm telling you as parents, because it's important that we're all on top of it. Okay. So I'm switching a little bit now to the financial side. So why do I bring up it's important to understand a college's financial aid policy? Because I've been talking about merit scholarships, right? So there's two ways that colleges give money. It's based on students' merit. Again, that calls this merit scholarship. And then some colleges give money based on financial need. Some colleges actually give both. And you need to know this about the college, right? You need to know, are they a college that's offering merit scholarships? Are they a college that's offering need-based money? Are they a college that's offering both? Some colleges that offer generous need-based are not offering merit. And those tend to be your selective schools. I mean, definitely the Ivies, again, some of the ones below it, like, not that they're below it in any sense, but like, Duke, Emory, Tufts, those schools do not give many merit scholarships, but they are very generous for if you have financial need. And even saying financial need doesn't mean that you're, very, very needy. Some of these schools, again, are generous, and they're giving need-based aid to families that make $250,000 and below. It's, graduated scale. So, but you just need to know which schools are giving what type of money. And I say this because, again, we have a lot of families that maybe don't spend the time like you guys are to learn this early. They get involved in the process and they apply, then their student applies to a school, and then they're surprised that they weren't offered merit scholarship money, and they didn't even know that the college doesn't offer merit scholarship money. So goes back to my saying you can't get money you can't get money from a school you don't apply to, but you can't get money from a school that's not offering merit scholarships. So you need to know that information beforehand. So just a quick comment about how you even know that you have need. Again, it comes down to understanding what the COA is, the cost of attendance of a college. That's the most it's going to cost. That's all the fees rolled up. So that's the tuition, room and board, and any kind of miscellaneous fees that the colleges might have. That's totals the cost of attendance. So if you look at the cost of attendance, and then you need to know what your it used to be called expected family contribution. It is in the midst of being transitioned to something called student aid index. This is the calculation that the government and colleges do when they do look at all of your financials, your income, and they're saying, based on what we know about you, based on your adjusted gross income, based on what savings you might have. For the government, they're only looking at non-retirement savings. For private colleges that ask for more detail on an additional form called the CSS profile, they are looking at everything that you own. They are saying, we believe that you can afford, X amount to pay for college. So almost nobody ever agrees with this, but this is the system and the process that the colleges use to determine whether or not you have need. So I'll just give you a very quick example, round numbers. It could be that a family estimates, and I can tell you how you can estimate what this number is ahead of time, that they estimate that their EFC or their SAI is $30,000. So that means at a minimum, colleges are going to expect that they can pay $30,000 a year to send their student to college. If a college has a cost of attendance of $60,000, then the difference, right, is $30,000. So that is that family's financial need. They can afford $30,000, but they can't afford to pay the full $60,000. So then you need to know, is the colleges that my student is looking at, because I have financial need, are they going to give need-based money? So that's why you want to know, do I have financial need, and does the college give money to families with financial need? I'll give you another example. You could be a family that you estimate, or you may not even want to estimate, because maybe you're lucky enough and you just know that the college is going to look at you and expect that you're going to pay the full price. But let's just say your EFC/SAI is $80,000. Most colleges, they're going to look at that and say you have the means to pay full price for what we have to offer. And so if you want to find money to lower your cost, in that case, you're going to have to look at colleges that offer merit scholarships to lower your students' costs, because no college is going to give you need-based aid. Okay, so I've gone over this quickly. This is honestly a presentation and a webinar on its own, but I just wanted to give you a taste for understanding need-based aid and how you might determine it. And so let me actually just give you a quick resource, for anybody right now. A lot of things are in flux. Again, you may not realize because of what year your students are in high school, but the financial aid form, it's called FAFSA, is being changed this year. That's why the acronym EFC is being changed to SAI, Student Aid Index. The formula for calculating this number is also being changed, updated. I'm not sure it's being updated for the better, but it's being updated. And this is all happening and supposed to be in place by December. It was originally supposed to be in place by October. Then it got delayed to December. I just saw something but it wasn't an official announcement that said it might even get delayed till January. So this is all in flux. The tools that everybody used to have to estimate these things kind of are not completely valid anymore, but we're doing the best we can with what's happening. And so I would recommend that you actually, I don't love the College Board for a lot of things, but they happen to have a good calculator. And I would just Google College Board EFC calculator and use their calculator to get an estimate of what your EFC/SAI will be. It's not going to be accurate to the dollar amount. It actually, might be within the range of $5,000, but at least you have a ballpark of what your numbers might be. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to skip. I'll just tell you these family stories. The reason why I share them is because I want to show you again the importance of the college list and also the importance of having options. This student, this mother shared that their son applied to 6 schools and he applied to schools that were very reach oriented for him. Well, actually, she says that he got into 4 of the reaches. He got waitlisted at some of the other schools, but the bottom line is he only got into 2 schools that were options for them because those were the only 2 schools that were potentially affordable. And one of them was his state school, and then the other one was a school with a very, very high price tag. So this is just an example to show that you and your student want to have options when it comes time to make the decision of where they're going to go to college. You want to have options that they're going to be happy at the school, but also that there are options that you can afford or you're comfortable with whatever level of debt that you and your student might take on. And so again, whatever options that you have at that spring time frame of when your student has acceptance are going to be based on the colleges that are on your student's list, are going to be based on the colleges your student applies to. So that's why we focus so much on the research and what that final list is of what your student applies to. Okay, so here's just a summary of my quick tips. And then I'm going to show you a tool that we did create over the past few years because we want to make this process simpler. Data is good. I personally love data. And I think to create like the first half of your students' list, it is important to look at the data. It's going to help you narrow down the schools that are affordable, the schools where your student is at that top 75th percentile, the schools that give out merit scholarships. So I kind of, I use that data. And I think it's important to kind of make that list. And then I feel like to go deeper when you do research, you might need to go what I call off-road research. So you're going to have to do more qualitative research. So you're going to make usually your list of colleges based on quantitative information, and then to narrow it and refine it, you need qualitative information. You might need to talk to students at the school. You're going to go on visits. You're going to ask questions to the admissions rep. You're going to look at the curriculum of the classes that your student might take. You might even talk to professors. So that's all great information, but that's obviously qualitative, and you're going to combine that with the quantitative research that you do to determine what this initial list is. Okay, so here's just my quick tips. Important to know what you can afford to pay for college, right? So number 1 is important to know what the colleges expect you to pay for college, and that's your EFC SAI. Second is it's important to know what your family budget is. What your family budget is may or may not be what the colleges expect you to pay. It doesn't mean that you can change what the colleges expect you to pay, but you should keep it in mind. And I'll give this story very quick of a mother who shared and said, she had 4 students, she had 4 kids. Their family was, did well, but she had to put 4 kids through college, which was a huge cost. And when she ran her EFC was $80,000, but there was no way, she said, she could afford to pay full price for 4 kids through college. So she determined that her budget was going to be $30,000. Right. But the colleges are saying, but you can pay $80,000. So she needed to find colleges that were going to give her student merit scholarships, or just find colleges that had lower tuitions. And that's what she did. And she, I think, ultimately was able to find a college for her first student that cost them a net of $35,000. But my point is that she made it, she understood what her budget was, which was different than what her EFC or SAI might be for the college. And then she stuck to it, and she did her research based around her budget. So we talked about need-based versus merit scholarships. Number 4 is cast a wide net. Well, I'm going to show you how to do the research with this tool. And I try and get, and this is great for parents, at the stage where you're in, where your students are juniors. Don't get hung up with what state, my student only wants to go to school in California, or, my student only wants these big rah-rah schools. Don't get hung up on those criteria yet. Let's cast this wide net, see where your student is at the top of the academic range, and then start whittling it down. But if you go in with preconceived criteria, then you might not even see some schools that might be affordable, might not be exactly what your student wanted initially, but might be worth researching and considering. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead and just jump over to the tool I want to show you, and then just because we're running out of time. Okay, let me share back. Okay, can you guys see? It's a screen that says College Insights. And let me get my chat back. Okay, great. Thank you. So we created this tool, honestly, a few years, but honestly, like about 3 years ago. We keep improving it every year. This year, it was a big deal for us. We're a very small company. We made this mobile friendly, and we're continuing to add in features. So if you end up using this and there's something that you think would be worthwhile, please email me, let me know. We're open to seeing what else we can do to continue to improve this. But the goal of College Insights was to make it easier for families to research on certain criteria, and I'll show you which ones and why, and to build college lists and be able to more easily compare information across multiple colleges, to be able to save lists, name them, share them, all that type of thing. So there's 3 types of data that's in here. One is we license data from a company called Peterson's, and Peterson's is the major source that compiles common data set information from all colleges. It's also the same source that US News and World uses to create their rankings. We don't necessarily love them, but that is what they're using. And then it's the same source that the College Board has. But for whatever reason, different companies and different search sites use it differently. We focus on the merit scholarship information because that's what we want people to more easily be able to search on. So a lot of this information is common data set information, which is really much easier because there's otherwise families who want to look at common data set information are going to each school individually. And this is a way to kind of pull it all together, look at it once and do searches on it. The second source of information we use some information from iPads, which is the government source. And the third source is what we call crowdsourced offers. And that is information that we have gathered, collected, crowdsourced from families over the past few years. When families get the actual offers from colleges, they share that back. And then you can see at each school what type of offers students are actually getting and what their profile is. So that's kind of interesting and unique information. So Let me just sign in. I have a Google sign in, so I'm not going to put in a password. I guess I have to verify my account. Okay, there we go. So, there's different ways you can search here. You can search by an individual college. If I put in a college name, it pulls up all of the information we have, and you're looking at just one college at a time. Percentage of women who are graduates versus men. Sophomore year, this is like the retention rate, which is important. 4-year graduation rate, this is really important. Ironically, a lot of places, the government included, shows 6-year graduation rate. That's really what the government has mandated that colleges have to share. So when you look at a college website, they may be sharing the 6-year graduation rate, not the 4-year graduation rate. As a parent, I'm more interested in the 4-year graduation rate. We're talking about costs. I want to make sure my student graduates in 4 years, not in 6 years. So that's an important number to look at. We have information on ethnicity, admissions. We break out what the overall admit rate is versus if your student is applying early decision, what specifically that rate is. If the college had early action, we would have that information. And then because we break out early decision, you also see what the regular decision rate is. In some schools, if a school is taking a lot of students at early decision, their regular decision rate is much lower because they're being much more selective on the students that they're taking. Again, that relates to this % of class filled early decision. This is Tufts. So Tufts takes 60% of their class early decision. So that's a huge chunk. If your student is applying regular decision, there's still a chance they're getting in, but it becomes more competitive. So this is just the type of information that we share. And then we share with this need-based versus merit-based information. You can quickly see % of need met. Again, I just chose Tufts as an example. Tufts is a school that is generous. If you have financial need, they are covering 100% of whatever that financial need is. Tufts doesn't really give merit scholarships. They might give like a handful here and there. So that's why it says freshmen without need who are receiving merit scholarship, 2%. So if you're a family, this is just an example for Tufts. If you're a family that wants to find a school that might give your student merit scholarships and you don't have financial need, your student can apply to Tufts, but be expected that if they get in, you're going to have to pay the full sticker price. They're not giving money for merit scholarships to students who are going to Tufts. They're only giving money if you have financial need. Again, that's why it's important to kind of know what the financial aid policies are. Somebody's asking, when do you find out what need you will receive at the time of acceptance? Yes. Usually merit scholarships, they usually tell you at the time that your student is accepted. If your student's getting need-based aid, it may come at that time. It may come a few weeks later. It's not a straightforward answer. Again, a lot of times you get some financial information when they're accepted, but you might not get all of it. It might come a few weeks later. Okay, so yes, can we look at the middle of the road school for the average student? Let's do that. So I'm going to go back to this. This is the section called where we do all filters. We're changing the name to Power Search so it's more clear. But this is where you can do some like reverse searching to see what where your student might be in the top of the class. So I'm not going to. I mean, you could put in majors. I'm not going to put in majors now. I'm going to go with this approach of we're just looking. We're casting a wide net. Okay. I'm not even going to put in a region. I'm not going to put in a school size, but let's start to put in some academic numbers to see where your student is in that 70th percentile. So so let's say ACT, I'm going to pick a student that's, let's say 28 to 30. That has gotten a 28 to 30. So you can search by average. If I search by the average range, then that's most likely a school where that student has a good chance of getting in, but they may not get merit scholarship money because they're, in the middle. But if I search by show me schools where that test grade is in the 75th percentile, then it's more likely that that student is going to be offered merit if the school is giving out merit. Okay. You could put in a GPA. I'm not going to right now. Again, we're just trying to be as wide a net as possible. At some point, you could say, you know, show me schools within a certain price range. So I want to see only schools that have up to 50,000 or 60,000. But again, I'm going to make this as broad as possible. Okay, so there's 267 colleges where the student, if a student has a SAT of 28 to 30, that puts them in the 75th percentile at the top range. Okay, and I'm going to now sort these schools. You can see you can sort them by average merit aid, right? Because now we're going to see, now we know these 267 colleges. I put in the criteria of 28 to 30. We know that already that score range puts them at the top of the academic range for these schools. And now I can see schools that offer merit money. So, and this is ordered by the amount of merit money that they offer. So Beloit offers 100% of students that don't have any financial need. They're offering them merit scholarship money, an average of 41,000. That doesn't mean every student who goes there is being offered 41,000, but most likely if your student, you know, is in the top range, you're getting that higher amount. But if you were a student with that, you know, 28 to 30 test score range, and you needed a school that was offering merit scholarships, I would, you know, put Beloit on the list to look at. So I'm so sorry, quickly. Yes, Sarah, you can watch the webinar about the essays. Go to our YouTube channel, road2college.com. We list all of these sessions on the YouTube channel, and the one from last night should be up there. So you can go watch it there. So I'm just kind of quickly going through here. University of Tulsa, you know, offers merit. You can now scroll through and see which of these schools offer merit. And honestly, what I would do is, you know, save the school. You can add it to a list, and you can name your list, and then you can go and pull up this list and see even more data around it. So I'm going to pull up a list that I have pre-made so we can look at the data. So you go to my lists, and I have a list here, colleges with the most merit that I must have made for somebody. Okay, now you can see all this data in chart form. So somebody's asking, is the amount of merit for the academic year or for 4 years? Great question. It is for 1 year. It is for one academic year. It is not for 4 years. So I'm going to just pick, I want to see all this data, and then we'll scroll through it. So you can see admissions data, the aid and merit, and then the financial data. Okay. And then I can sort this information by any column. So let's just scroll through, and just to show you some of the interesting fields. If you're a family that's looking, let's actually look at the admissions data. Oh, I have this thing from Zoom that's in my way. Okay, here are test scores. So you can see the 75th percentile test score. You can see the average test score. You can see, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm not doing this smoothly. I have something in the way from Zoom. You can see what I want to show everyone. I wanted to show you the admit rates. You can see overall admit rate. You could see what percent of the class is being filled by early decision. And then let me scroll to the column on merit scholarships. So you can see the cost of attendance. Here is this column that says freshmen without need who receive merit aid, and then the average merit award. So, okay, so this is a list I think I made. It was schools that offer generous merit. Again, Beloit's coming to the top. So Beloit's offering 41,000 to 100% of the students. You can also scroll over and see that Beloit has a cost of attendance of $65,000. Let me just tell you, we're in the process of updating this data. Over the next week, we will have the most recent data. I'm only pointing that out because that was 65,000 was probably last year's cost of attendance. It is probably has gone up. We'll have that new information in very soon. But so if your student went to Beloit and they got offered a merit scholarship, their net cost could be around 25,000. It could be 40,000 that is subtracted from the 65,000. So that's a very well-priced college for the quality of the school like Beloit. The same thing, Susquehanna, I happen to know, is a very generous school too. And you can see they give a large amount of money to in merit, and then that significantly reduces the cost of attendance. So this is the way you start to research and you start to estimate what your costs might be if your student has that academic profile that puts them at the top range for these schools, and you can now see which schools are offering merit and which schools are not. Let me just show you the crowdsourced offers that we have. So here, a column that says crowdsourced offer. So it pulls up. These are actual offers that parents shared. I will give one caveat. It is crowdsourced. We don't. It's an honor system. People sometimes make mistakes, in how they classify the information. If you notice something strange, let me know. We reach out to the family and we say, did you really mean that to be? Sometimes the mistake that they make is they put in 4 years of what the scholarship is and not just 1 year. So this information should be like the one year scholarship or need-based aid money that a family received. But what you can see is it gives you the sense of what income range that family was from. An EFC of under 15,000. They probably, honestly are a Pell Grant family. They're from the state of Georgia. The student had this GPA and this SAT. As you can see, honestly, they got full tuition. They got $82,000 in need. But that makes sense now that you understand that student's profile. Hold on, I'm getting stuck with. So I can't scroll for some reason. I think it's just the way it's happening on Zoom. But this was last year's. You can even go back from the year before, and you can see the offers that students had at Beloit. I would probably go back 2 years and look at offers. Sometimes past 3 years, the policies were changing. So maybe the offers that students got then are not going to be close to what they get now. But this, again, gives you an idea of, you can see for Beloit, for students who families are above that 60,000 range in terms of what they can expect to pay for college, they are getting offered merit scholarships in the mid 30 range. So knowing that Beloit was in the mid 60s for a total cost of attendance, this is a school that could be in the 30,000s for some students to attend Beloit. So we will soon, one of the improvements we are working on is right now you can just view the crowdsourced information. You'll still be able to view it, but one of the things that we're adding to our power search is your ability to search the crowdsourced information. So you'll be able to put in your students' academic profile and say, show me the schools that that families had crowdsourced offers that match my students. So that's just another way you'll be able to search the data. I'm about 10 minutes over. I apologize. Let me just look at some of the questions. If anybody is interested in giving College Insights a try, I'll just put in the URL. So we have a free version of it. You can try some of the things I did. You can't see all the information. You have 5 searches that you can do, but it gives you a sense of what I just showed you. And then you can either, there is a paid version. It's $24.99 a month. You can use it for, a month Some people, do that, which is perfectly fine. You might use it for a few months to do searching. And then we actually have another offer that if you purchase it for the year, you also get access to all of our videos. This today is a free video. We do a ton of free videos, but we actually have a coaching service that we do, which has, we do live sessions, and we have office hours, and that is 2 or 3 sessions a month. We go into real detail on the topics that families need to know throughout the whole year. So that's just something else putting out there as something you might want to consider. So let me stop sharing, but go through some of these questions that people might have. So if your EFC is lower than your COA, similar to your example, should you only apply to need-based aid schools? That's a really good question. I love these questions today. So you should definitely be looking at need-based aid schools because but you should also be looking at schools that offer merit. So just because your cost of attendance, your EFC is lower than the cost of attendance, it doesn't mean that your student won't get merit. So I would be applying to both types of schools. Definitely schools that offer need-based aid and also schools that offer merit scholarships. Let me just say one caveat about need-based aid. It is calculated or recalculated every year. So I mentioned merit scholarships, whatever amount they offer you, it's going to be available for all 4 years. The need-based aid, you might be eligible for need-based aid every year, but the amount you're eligible is going to change based on your financial situation because it's going to be based on filling out the financial aid forms, which you'll have to do every year. So if for whatever reason your income changes higher or lower, that's going to impact your financial need. So it's good that you can get financial need. It's any assistance is helpful, but just know that fluctuates. The merit scholarship money isn't going to fluctuate. Whatever they offer is going to be available for the 4 years. Oh, so somebody's asking, is the advice piece only for the 1-year subscription? It is. So if you do the 1-year subscription, then you get the access to the full video library that we have on, and not just that it's videos that we've had for the past, honestly, 2 years, and then you get access to all the videos as we have sessions this coming year as well. Yes, any chance that the kids with the 3.0 GPA could get merit scholarships? Absolutely. So you might have noticed that I searched and focused more on test scores. And the only reason I searched using test scores more is because of this issue of GPAs that, some colleges are doing weighted versus unweighted, but also when you look at the data, colleges are just not as good about sharing data related to GPA. So although I'd love to have data on all the colleges for the GPA, if I look at the data set and I could, look at all this at a sample of the schools just aren't some schools, I can pull one up. They might share some schools don't even share the average GPA. Some schools share an average GPA, but then don't give the breakout of the GPA. So it's just a little harder to do research by using GPA. It's really unfortunate. And I think it's something that they should clean up, especially because, if they want to be test optional and they don't want kids to rely on tests. But so one recommendation I have is that I would take if your student doesn't want to take a test, which is also perfectly fine, I would take their GPA, I would take a version of it as weighted and unweighted, and I would convert it to what, if your student were to take a SAT or an ACT, what range would they get? And a place to do it, I would Google Prep Scholar ACT or SAT conversion tables. They actually have a really good conversion tables. You can see your student's GPA, and then you can see a range of what they might have gotten on an SAT and ACT. And I would just use that for your searching. The good thing about the power search I showed you is you can keep changing the criteria all the time. You can kind of shift it and say, okay, let me look by GPA, but maybe I didn't get all the results I wanted. Let me also look by SAT. Let me look by ACT. Let me change the ACT range. Let me change the GPA range. So do all of that fooling around, and then you can select different colleges to create your lists. Any information about colleges in Europe? That's a good question. We don't have information like at this level for colleges in Europe. Most of all the colleges in the database are US based colleges. Let's look through some other questions. Okay, so yes, I think I mentioned about the data on the website. I actually have a file waiting for me as soon as I get off that we're going to be spot checking the data. So we actually might even have some of the updated data out this weekend, and it will definitely be out next week. So we're like right there in terms of providing the up-to-date data. When do we recommend filling out the FAFSA for current seniors since changes are coming? As of the only people who can fill out the FAFSA are parents or students that are enrolling in college. So you shouldn't be filling out the FAFSA until your student is a senior next year in the fall of their senior year. I wouldn't even be concerned about filling out the FAFSA. I would be concerned about coming up with an estimate for what your EFC is by going to the College Board calculator. Just so you know, we're in the process, will probably be another month, of creating a spreadsheet based on the new SAI formula that you'll be able to estimate using the spreadsheet what your SAI is going to be, and again, kind of fool with the numbers. So we're hoping to have that out pretty soon, but in like the next few weeks, if you want to get an idea, I would go to the College Board's calculator. Okay, good question. I'm going to go for a few more questions, and then I'm going to say goodbye. But another good question about how accurate are the college's net price calculators if you don't need need-based aid through FAFSA? Is chatting with financial aid office a better indicator of the aid you might get? So I'm going to just focus on the question about how accurate are the college's net price calculators. Every college has a net price calculator. They have to, the government has mandated that they include it on their website. For whatever reason, what the government did not mandate is that the calculators have to be accurate. So they may not be accurate. I would still run a college's net price calculator. The more information the calculator asks for, the more likelihood that it will be accurate. If a college is asking for grades or asking for SAT or ACT score, then it is likely that they're sharing and their incorporated merit scholarship information into their calculation. I wish I had better information to say, yes, the numbers you get from those calculators, you know, they're gold, use them. With all of this, what I've shared today, I will use this information as guides. There's nothing, unfortunately, that can give you an exact, precise number before you get the information from the colleges after your student's been accepted. It's just the weakness of the system, and it's bad. But so run the college's net price calculator, use it as a guide. It could be off by 5,000 to 10,000, but it's not going to be off by more than that. So, and then again, this is crazy to say, but you could ask the college and say, is your net price calculator up to date? Sometimes the colleges are not using their own up-to-date information. They might not have their latest, you know, tuition numbers in there. So ask the admissions office, ask the financial aid office, just you know, to understand how accurate the information is, the inputs that they're using for their calculator are. A link to this will be sent tomorrow. Oh, why was athletics not included under talent? That's a great question, because athletic scholarships is a whole different world. It's a whole different system. And we don't focus on that because so if your student is going for an athletic scholarship, I can give you, resources to look into, but it is a different system than what we talked about today. The only kind of overlap is if your student is athletic and going for a spot on the team, but they're going for a D3 school. D3 schools don't give out athletic scholarships. So actually a D3 school is looking for a student, the best student that they can find who wants to be on their sports team is a strong athletic student who's also a strong academic student. Those students will probably get preference in terms of merit scholarships because the coach will put in the word or the pressure that they want that student, and that that student wants a scholarship, and that scholarship will come from merit scholarships. In some cases, actually, personally, I think that's a great scholarship because your student might want to be on the sports team for all 4 years, but if for whatever reason your student doesn't continue with sports, their merit scholarship will continue, versus if they got a true athletic scholarship at a D1 school and they got hurt, they lose their athletic scholarship. So just something to think about. But if you want true help with D1 athletic scholarships process, email me, Debbie@road2college.com. I can give you resources, but we don't get involved. That's a pretty complicated system. Okay. So can you get more merit than what the grid has laid out if they really want you? Probably not. Usually their top dollar amount is their top dollar amount. My one little caveat to that is there is an appeal process, in the winter, springtime. They might up it by a few $1,000s, even though they're giving you the top amount, but they really want you. But don't expect, if you've been given the top amount, that you can get like another 10,000. They could maybe squeeze out another few thousand, but if they're putting out a grid, they usually stick to the grid dollar amounts. In building a list, what are good ways to find schools with strong merit? I think we went through that. Are you asking these types of questions at a tour via email to the admissions financial aid office before applying? The questions that I mentioned today, you can ask them anyway. You can ask them on a tour. Your student can ask them. The rep might be visiting school. Actually, I would highly recommend that your student get the email address of the regional rep of schools that they're interested in. And it's I think these questions are like helpful information. It shows that your students, researching the school. And I think that they're also really good to email, because then it starts a conversation between your student and the admissions rep. So you can ask them any of these ways. Again, I think email is a nice way, because it usually the college or the rep will also kind of put it on record that your student emailed, and then you've just opened a dialogue, or your student has opened a dialogue with the admissions rep. So I hope this was helpful to you guys. Going forward, we have a lot more similar types of webinars on different topics. So, just watch your emails and we'll let you know. And ask questions in the Facebook group. There are so many really good, both professionals and parents. Kind of honestly, once you go through this process and you put in the time to do the research, you become like a little mini expert. And a lot of parents are really knowledgeable in the group. And I love that they are willing to stick around and share their knowledge. So take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. And so happy that you were here as junior parents early to learn the process, and see you soon. Bye.